Lydia, the lifestyle coach, and we are ending eating disorders using nothing but your brain. So we are talking about binge eating and bulimia and overeating and body hate and food obsession and yo-yo dieting and all of the things that keep us trapped in our life. But one thing that we get asked so often is, okay, well, am I a binge eater? Am I an overeater? Am I bulimic? Like, there's this definition of, we're trying to define if we have a problem or not based on, do we fit into this definition or do we fit into this box? And so we are just going to dive right into that today, because the truth is that when it comes to your life, it has so little to do with the definition. It has to do with, what are you experiencing, and then how do you fix that? So to just give you a couple of quick examples, like, I mean, there was a time not very long ago when binge eating disorder, there was no definition of that. Like, binge eating disorder, nobody believed in it, wasn't a thing. People experienced it. It absolutely was something that was happening, but it wasn't defined by the medical community for a really long time. That is a more recent thing. Anorexia has been around for a little longer by definition, and so has, bulimia, but binge eating disorder is something that is more recent. And so just because it's not in a book or in a journal doesn't mean that it's not a real thing. Because if you are experiencing it, then it is real. And we are going to go over a couple of things that you can examine and look at in this. So I just wanted to say hello, welcome. It's so fun to see all of you guys popping on. Hello, hello, hello. And again, this is Lydia, the lifestyle coach, and we are here for another live feed. Feel free to say hello. Let us know you're here. All the hearts, all the likes. Like, feel free to share your experience and ask questions. And it's just really wonderful that we have this community here together to talk about truth, to talk about really how we're going to get to the other side of this problem. So the definition is something that hasn't been around for a long time. And then there are things like chewing and spitting that we've helped so many people with. They're completely free of it. They've been doing it for 25 years. They felt so awful, so disgusting. Then they come to us and now they're free. They understand why they did it, and they understand how to be done with it, and they are done with it. But it's one of those things that doesn't really fit into a box. Like, it doesn't fit into, well, what is that? Is that bulimia? Is that just me being weird? A lot of times when people are chewing and spitting, they think they're the only ones. Like, they're like, all right, I'm about to tell you something that I do that I've never told anyone, that I'm sure I'm the only person that does this. And then they describe it and we're like, oh, okay, so you're struggling with chewing and spitting, and this is how we get you to the other side of this. So that's an important thing to understand there. Now, the problem with trying to define things so specifically, and there's importance and there's merit to a definition, right? It's like, by definition of a definition, you have to have something that it is and something that it's not. But the problem is that it leaves out everybody that doesn't fit into that specific definition, and it says either you're weird or broken because you don't fit into a definition, or it sends this message of like, well, there's no hope or treatment for you because you don't fit inside this box. And it's really detrimental to those who don't fit there. So for instance, we had a client who, for 25 years, she had struggled with eating disorders. She was anorexic, bulimic, binge eater, just like that revolving door of all of the different things that you struggle with eating disorders. And in that, for 25 years, she had been to an inpatient center multiple times. She'd go back, she'd invest all of this money, she would do her very best, she would do everything they asked her, and like it is literally 98% of the time, it didn't help. It made it worse. Literally, there's a 2%, and I'm going to even put this in quotes, success rate with that method, because it doesn't fix the problem. Like, it makes things worse. It perpetuates the cycle, and then it makes people feel more broken every single time they go. So she's going back for like the fourth or fifth time to this treatment center, and they're asking her what she's experiencing. And she's done this over and over. She's just desperate for help. She really, doesn't want to have this take over her life anymore. It's been 25 years and she just wants it done. So even though it didn't work last time, or the time before, or the time before, or the time before, she's going back again. And she's describing what she's experiencing. And they just look at her like, wait, you just like think about food all the time? Like, you can't eat around other people? Like, you're just really scared of food? Like, yeah, you have binge eating and it was essentially came down to, you don't fit in a box. Like, you do not check enough of the check boxes. And then there are things that we don't have check boxes for. And they turned her away. They said, sorry, we can't do anything for you because you don't fit this definition. And that didn't stop this problem with food, this fear of food, the binge eating, the not being able to eat in front of people, the being so terrified, the thinking about food all the time, hating her body. It didn't stop that from happening just because she didn't fit in some category. And how life goes, it's a really beautiful thing that sometimes when you're like, wow, this really isn't an answer. In fact, I got turned away from this. Then she did some internet searching. She found us. She saw the results that we got, all the freedom stories. She said, I want to be a freedom story. She came to us. She drew that line in the sand. Despite this chapter in life and this chapter in the world and everything going on, she decided that her freedom was the most important thing. And in 3 days, she saw more of a transformation with us actually showing her how to fix the problem than she did in 25 years. And it wasn't about the definition of, do you fit in this box or not? It's, do you have a struggle with food or your body that is destroying your life? And if so, we know exactly how to fix it. But having those rigid definitions is something that a lot of times can really set us back. So another example is, like I said, the chewing and spitting. It's like, oh, what is that? It's like the medical community is like, oh, I didn't know that existed. It's like, no, it does, because people are experiencing it. We know exactly how to get you to the other side of it. We had a woman that came to us. She started out anorexic, then she was a binge eater. And for 10 years, she had been what she called sober, right? I'm going to put that in quotes. Like, that was her model. She's like, oh, okay, sugar, white flour, those things are drugs I'm addicted to. By the way, none of that is true. I'm sorry if you believe that. We have proven that wrong over and over and over and over hundreds of times. I know it feels like an addiction, but when you can just turn it around and know that no matter how, in quotes, addicted you are, that you can just melt away that urge and that compulsion toward food and move forward with your life, well, then I guess it wasn't like this chemical addiction that you're going through withdrawals, because we've seen it turned around in a matter of weeks. So she came to us, and for 10 years, she hadn't had sugar or flour. For 10 years, she hadn't binged. If she would have gone to the medical model and said, hey, I'm not binging, they would have said, okay, then you don't have a problem. And what was happening is that although she didn't have the eating disorder behaviors, she had an eating disordered mind and life. She woke up every single day obsessed about food, obsessed about her body. She couldn't be present with the people that she loved most. She loved her kids, but she couldn't really be there and present with them because her brain was always counting calories, and it was always thinking about her body and how she needs to change things. And it was just this constant obsession. She was exhausted by the end of the day. She couldn't move forward with anything in her life because she didn't have energy for it. Like, she couldn't go back and get the job that she wanted. She just felt totally incapable to do anything. And she was just frozen in life because she was constantly trying to figure out a way to not obsess about this all the time. But she was really worried when she came to us, because she's like, I don't know if you can help me because I don't binge. It's like, yeah, we can. Because you are struggling so deeply with food, it is taking over your mind and all of your mental energy. And that's where it starts anyway. And we're going to end it at its root. And now she's a freedom story. And she's on our channel. And you can really see that whatever you're struggling with, whether it's the mental obsession, whether it's the behaviors, that it really comes down to the same root, is that you have an urge or a compulsion mentally or physically to do something that is taking away how you want to live your life. And if you ended that urge and compulsion, and you knew how to make it not come back, which is exactly how we show our clients how to do, then you're done and you're free. And it's a really beautiful thing. Another thing that happens is we've had so many phenomenal women that struggle with binge eating that it doesn't show up in their weight. Everyone has a different body. Everyone has a different metabolism. So we've had women that go into meetings because they struggle and feel horrible about and are tortured by their binge eating, but they are thin women. And then they go into a meeting looking for help, and they essentially get laughed at or shunned or told to leave because it's not showing up as weight gain on them. You don't fit into this box. You can't play here. Go somewhere else. Well, where else is there to go? I don't fit anywhere. And are you sick and tired of knowing that you struggle, of knowing how difficult this is every single day, knowing that something is deeply wrong, but because there's no specific definition for it, you feel like there's nowhere to go? I want you to understand that there is hope and there is help, and we've done it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. So I'll give you another example. We had a client who she didn't binge, she didn't restrict, she was fine with her body, but she defined herself, and a big part of her identity was she's a healthy person. And she would eat healthy all day long. And then when it got to the end of the day, she had this really strong compulsion to eat junk food. And she didn't overeat it, and she wasn't overly full, and it wasn't painful physically. And she would eat the junk food, and then emotionally, she would feel tortured about it because she was a healthy person that didn't believe in eating that way, that wouldn't tell anyone else to eat that way. And she felt like she had no power over her life. And it was hurting her confidence, and it was hurting her career, and it was hurting her self-esteem, like really how much she believed in herself because she felt so incredibly out of integrity. And you know what? She could have done that for the rest of her life, and it wouldn't have impacted her health. And she could have done that for the rest of her life, and it wouldn't impact her weight. But every single day, it was impacting her sense of integrity. And she had been trying to fix this for over 30 years. There was more of her life that she was trying to fix this problem than she was free from this problem. She wanted more than anything to be done with this, but nobody would take her seriously. She would tell friends of hers, like, oh, I really struggle with this, and nobody would take her seriously. Well, we had a client that came through our program who her big thing was like, I'm so tired of being addicted to diets. Like, I just go back and back, and I know they don't work, and I want to be done. She'd been struggling for 40 years, and this was her friend. So she came through our program. She was completely free after 40 years of this destructive cycle with dieting. She was finally absolutely free and celebrating that. And she knew that her friend had been struggling. And she's like, you know what? Like, this fixed my problem after 40 years. It'll fix your problem after 30 years. And it did. She came in. She was so incredibly happy to finally just have this fixed. But I'm so glad that her friend believed her that she was struggling, because she wasn't struggling as much as some other people. And so it was this idea of, you don't fit into a box, you don't struggle in the same way that I do, that like has more of these check boxes checked. And so your problem isn't valid. And it's just absolutely not true. So no matter what you call it, whether you call it emotional eating or being out of control or stress eating or food addiction, there are so many different names, but it comes down to, if you are struggling with food, body, mentally or physically, that there is a way to fix it. And we've done it hundreds and hundreds of times. It is the same root. And it just comes down to, is food ripping away your quality of life? So let's just look at this for a minute, because like there are these, key diagnostic features of binge eating disorder, right? And I just want to really illustrate how much this model and definition is lacking. And I understand, like, if you're going to put something in a book, you've got to define it, right? You've got to be like, okay, it is this and it's not this. But what it's not capturing is all the people that are struggling that aren't in this box, right? So number one, recurrent and persistent episodes of binge eating. So let's look at that for a minute. Recurrent and persistent. Well, what if this completely surprises you, like once a month, once every 2 months? You have no idea when the binge is going to happen. You have no idea why you're doing it. You just feel set off. You don't even know what to prevent. Like, do you know the feeling that creates in your life? You are walking on eggshells. You are in fear every single day because you don't know when it's going to happen. And it'll happen 5 days in a row, and then it won't happen for 3 months. And then it'll happen all at once, and it'll go for a week. Like, that is not persistent. That is not something regular. Are you still struggling? Are you still tortured every day of your life? Yes, you are. That's the thing that we need to look at, but that would not fall within that definition. Then it defines 2 binge eating episodes are associated with 3 or more of the following. Let's just look at this. Number 1 here, eating much more rapidly than normal. All right, first of all, what is normal? Who is defining normal? And then what is rapidly, right? But I can tell you, we have, with the hundreds and hundreds of women that we've helped, there are plenty of them that are not eating more rapidly than normal, right? If we want to sort of define normal in many different ways, right? Like that's a fuzzy thing. But this is what we call the graze binge. You're not eating rapidly. You're going back for 10 almonds over and over and over, and you're trying to eat them just as slowly as possible. And over the span of 4 hours of your evening, when you could be with your family, when you could be reading a book, when you could be sleeping or resting or enjoying, creating memories, all that you can do is think of, oh, that wasn't satisfying. I just need one more thing. I just need one more thing. This is a slow graze binge where you're just going back and back. One more yogurt, one more granola bar. Maybe I need the yogurt with granola. Maybe I need to put a little bit of honey in it. Maybe I just need some almonds. Maybe I need some healthy fat. Maybe I'll have a scoop of peanut butter. And you get to the end of your night and you've eaten 3,000 extra calories that day of just these slow, small snacks that have built up where you feel absolutely miserable. That does not fit in that box, but that is still absolute misery. The next thing of the 3 or more that we're looking for, right? Eating until feeling uncomfortably full. So there are a couple things to look at here. And I've experienced this myself. And I know that this is a very common thing. You can binge and binge and binge. You can see your stomach distended. You can be in a place where you know that you have eaten an insane amount of food and still feel physically hungry. You're just always hungry. There was a time where I was feeling hunger pangs, like the deepest feelings of hunger when I had just binged on 3,000 calories of just awful stuff. And yeah, I knew it was crazy to feel hungry, but I can tell you, I wasn't uncomfortably full. I still felt hungry. When you struggle with food, a lot of times what happens is your hunger and fullness signals get really messed up and reversed or just go away completely. And so defining it on, are you feeling uncomfortably full? Well, that can absolutely be a no. And then the other thing is that there are people who have this struggle with food and have disordered eating that never get full physically or are satisfied in a full way. Because again, it goes to this grazing all throughout the day, right? You just eat little things and you never ever get full. You just keep on snacking and snacking and snacking, but you're thinking about food all day long and you're prepping food all day long, but you haven't felt full, much less uncomfortably full, in a decade. But that is still taking over your life. It is still causing so much obsession and so much anguish that you cannot live the life that you were meant to live. You cannot fulfill your purpose in the world because you're thinking about food all the time. All right, let's look at this next one. Eating large amounts of food when not feeling physically hungry. We're going back to the hunger and fullness signals. It's I don't know that the person who wrote this definition has ever had an eating disorder or had a problem with food. Because when on earth can you tell if you're truly physically hungry? I would binge and then I would feel physically hungry and then I would binge some more. So if you don't have hunger and fullness signals that you can decipher, how do you even know if you are eating when you're not physically hungry, if you don't know when you're physically hungry? Here's the next one. Eating alone because of being embarrassed by how much one is eating. Let me tell you what's really embarrassing. Binging in public. Being at a party and not paying attention to anyone else because there's food over there and you're going back and back, and you're taking your kids back because you're using them as an excuse to, oh, are you hungry? Do you want some more? Oh, no, honey, you don't. Oh, well, let's go look anyway because you're trying to go. And you are trying to go round and round and circle the snack table and get more and more food and have a fifth plate and a sixth plate. And you're trying so hard for people to not notice. Or you're just so out of control. By the way, this is a true story. Like, this was my experience. There were so many really wonderful events where I was winning awards, like where I was the guest there to receive an award, and they had this beautiful buffet, and I couldn't enjoy people saying congratulations because I was just so obsessed about going back to the food. That is deeply, deeply embarrassing. There were times we went to an all-inclusive resort one time, and everyone thought of me as just like the healthiest person. And oh, I'm a health coach and I'm so healthy. And I remember I just was so completely out of control. Like, I just had no hope in the world of what to do about this. But I just went to the buffet and I just got everything on multiple plates. I was carrying multiple plates stacked high back to the table. And I sat there in front of my friends who thought that I was healthy, and I ate all of it. And they just looked horrified. And I was horrified too. And I had absolutely no idea how to stop myself because I'd already been hiding it. Well, certainly binge alone as well. But there comes to a point, like, we've helped so many women that are like, yeah, I used to binge alone at night, but now I am so out of control, I'm binging around my family. Now I'm so out of control, I'm binging at work. And then especially for bulimics, like, you're binging and you're purging at work now, the thing that you said that you would never do. And you're worried about somebody from your workplace literally catching you purging in the work bathroom. Like, that is the extent of being out of control. So eating alone because of being embarrassed by how much one is eating, well, we don't fit in that box all the time. Like, yes, that can happen, but then it's also eating in public as well. And then the last one is feeling disgusted with oneself, depressed, or very guilty after overeating. And yes, this is absolutely something that you can experience if you have disordered eating, but the opposite happens as well. Like, there comes a point where we have just done this for so long, and we've coached women that for 50, 60 years, they have had this struggle with food and an eating disorder. And in that, yeah, there was a time where they felt disgusted with themselves, where they felt depressed, where they felt guilty, and then they gave up and they lost hope. And now all they feel is numb. They don't feel depressed. This is just the life that they're accepting. I have no control with food. This is probably going to kill me. Why even try anymore? So they're completely numb. They don't feel disgusted anymore. Maybe there was a time. They don't feel depressed anymore. They just feel numb. They just accept it. Like, everyone's going to die somehow. This is my drug. I guess there's no hope for me. And the sadness is that a lot of times at that point, people stop trying. People stop looking for solutions, and they never find us, and they never find the way to finally end this all the way. But I want to really honor all of the incredible women that have come to us, sometimes in their 60s and their 70s, after they've even had a decade of giving up. And then they happen to run across our materials or a video of ours, and they're like, wow, finally somebody gets it. Finally, there's a solution. And they have the strength to keep going, and they have the strength to have that hope and to book a breakthrough session. And now they get to enjoy the rest of their lives knowing what freedom is like. They didn't have to die without knowing what freedom was. And it's a really beautiful and wonderful thing. But I hope you guys see, like, the definition of binge eating, you can be a non-checking those boxes, like all those things that we just went over. You might not fit into any of those categories, but you still have such a deep struggle with food that if it doesn't get fixed, you will never live the life that you want to live. So the third thing is marked distress regarding binge eating. Sometimes we're super excited about it. We're not distressed about it. Like, we might be distressed afterwards, or we might not be. But sometimes it's just like we feel so messed up because it is the thing we look forward to most in our lives. Like, everyone go away, family go to sleep, husband leave the house, I just want to be alone so I can binge. We plan it, we're excited about it, we go to the store, we're finally going to let ourselves binge. Sometimes we don't feel distress at all. We feel messed up because we feel excited about it, because it's the most wonderful thing in our life, and that feels really messed up as well. And then 4 is an absence of regular compensatory behavior. So like purging, right? You're trying to compensate somehow for it. So this is problematic because a lot of times people think, oh, well, if I'm not purging, then I'm not bulimic. But people don't think of the way they compensate in very socially accepted but still incredibly damaging ways. Like, for instance, dieting, starving yourself the next day, calling it intermittent fasting, calling it fasting, calling it I'm just going to be healthier. You're compensating for the binge in one of the most damaging things that people can do for their health, which is restrictive dieting. But because society just says, oh, that's acceptable, oh, that's fine, you should just diet your entire life, even though it doesn't work, even though it's making you heavier and heavier, even though it's killing your metabolism, even though it's taking over your life, even though it's causing you an eating disorder, it's socially accepted to do that. And so a lot of times people will be like, oh, well, don't have any issue besides the binge eating because I'm not compensating for it. But people don't think of the overexercise, of the restrictive dieting, of the laxatives. People are like, oh, I had a binge. Like, I'm just going to take this so I can clear myself out and everything will be fine. They don't understand like the really deeply significant and serious health consequences of that. Like, that is the bulimic behavior. For the longest time, I was like, oh, well, I just have this weird addiction with food and I'm not bulimic because I can't purge. I tried. And I would sometimes when I just got too sick, but on purpose, I had a really hard time doing it. But yeah, I was bulimic for a long time. And it was restriction, and it was starving myself, and it was over exercising, and it was making permanent damage to my joints because I didn't have any choice but to just keep on running and running and running because I had to do something about the binge. Like, it's absolutely miserable. So please understand that the solution is that we need to stop focusing on the definition. We need to stop saying, well, do I fit into this box or do I fit into this box? And if not, then I can't do anything about it. Just ask yourself this simple human question. Do you have a relationship with food that is damaging your life? I'll say it again. Do you have a relationship with food that is damaging your life? And if so, know that there is a way to fix it and a way to end it and a way to have freedom for the rest of your life, where you are a normal eater, where food is a non-issue, where you have peace with food, where you can eat and move forward, where you can have dessert and not feel bad and not gain weight because of one dessert, where you can finally feel in integrity with yourself. And that's what we have done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And we're not going to say, hey, do you fit in this box? Or, hey, do you have all of these check boxes checked? We're going to say, what are you experiencing? What's not working with your relationship with food? And we're going to get clear on that, clear on you. Not a category in a book, but on you and who you really are and what you're experiencing and what you want on the other side of this and what freedom is. And that is the foundation of freedom, is we need to really understand you and where you're coming from. And we know how to get you to the other side of this. But we've got to first really know, and you've got to know, what is the real problem here? And then what do you want on the other side of this? And then if we can get you free into the other side and bridge that gap so you can live the rest of your life in that peace, we will show you how. And if not, then we'll know where to best direct you. Because we get it, we've been there. But either way, you're going to be super clear on next steps of how to fix this. And how you get that foundation of freedom is you simply book a free breakthrough session. You go to lifewithlydia.com/apply. Again, that's lifewithlydia, Lydia, my name, .com/apply. And you can book a free breakthrough session where we are going to talk to you. And we're not going to call it a disease. And we're not going to say, what symptoms are you exhibiting? We're going to really see what your experience is so that we know how to best get you to the other side of this. And again, it's lifewithlydia.com/apply. And so proud of you guys for being here, like continuing to know that there is something better for your life, because there is. And if you're here and you're listening and you want that, no, there's no better time than right now. This only gets harder the longer that you wait. And you trade the days of your life for either being free or not being free. Don't let one more day go by before you really claim that freedom for yourself. So sending all the love, and this is Lydia, the lifestyle coach, signing off. Bye, guys. Mwah.